Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Community Relations Subcommittee meeting. We will go ahead and get started. Do we want to start with roll? Does that work? Okay, let's start.
All right. Leslie Nesmith. June Elkins Baker.
Here.
Hannah Royce.
Here.
Erin Engelke.
Here. Great. Okay, well, let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance before we get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The notice of this meeting was properly posted on May 20th. To my knowledge, we don't have any public comments or members of the public that wish to address. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Well, let's jump into the agenda, beginning with the introduction of our current slate of members. I feel like we all already know each other, but is there anything that anybody wants to add to their role on this subcommittee, or perhaps why they're interested in serving in this capacity?
I'm not an official member of the subcommittee, but I would love to be. If you guys see fit to do that, I don't know if this is uncomfortable or not, but I had thought that I had participated or asked to be on this subcommittee, and I was completely wrong. I'm on another one. So I'm looking to our staff to ask for direction. Item 6.
To item
Okay.
6.
Gotcha.
Yes. That is when we will discuss additional members. So we'll be happy to do that then. Okay, well.
For me, I think it is the relationship in the community. I think it's very important. And so to look at ways, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what this is, as far as what our aims and our goals are going to be. But to me, anything dealing with community relationships, I think is important.
Yeah.
And I want it to be a part of that because I think that's going to be essential for us to move forward.
Yeah, I absolutely echo that, June. I have been a member of this community for all of my professional career and didn't grow up here, but call Oklahoma my home. And I absolutely believe that the relationships within the community are paramount, especially in interests that, in this particular case, affect members of our community that, could benefit from the support of a lot of important community leaders and members. So this one was definitely a committee that was of keen interest of mine. So anything else you want to add, Hannah?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of what you all have already said. The jail serves our community, right? It's not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we, out of obligation and, massive responsibility, owe it to the community to respond faster to things like deaths in the jail and really have a handle on what that looks like, when it does happen. How are we communicating best with our community and being as transparent and as open as, the law allows us to do so with these tender topics and discussions. And so being in marketing and relations my whole professional career, I want to see how and what we can do to improve upon that transparency and move at the speed of trust with a community that we have already, we're starting from ground zero, maybe even negative in the trust column. So I look forward to figuring out what those solutions are with all of you.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, anything else anybody would like to add before we move on? Thank you so much for your insights and willingness to participate in this committee. All right, so the next item on the agenda is to discuss the election of a chair and vice chair to the Community Relations Subcommittee. at this point, I think we can just open that up and determine who may perhaps would like to individually express interest in serving in either of those capacities. I mean, don't everybody speak at once.
I'll offer myself up. I know that you and Chris are both tied up as chair and vice chair, so I'd be willing to take the reins if you all would like me to do so. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose that once we get more subcommittee members, we could always change that, June, if you felt like you wanted to, once we have more members and that sort of thing. That way we're not putting our actual cab vice chair and chairs more on their workload. So.
Yeah. Well, with that, I so move to elect Hannah Royce as chair and June Elkins Baker as the vice chair to the Community Relations Subcommittee. Can I get a second?
I was going to say, I'll second for Miss June.
Okay, let's call the roll.
All right. June Elkins Baker. Yes. Hannah Royce.
Yes.
Aaron Engelke.
Yes. All right, wonderful. Congratulations, you two. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item number 4 to discuss the establishment of the time, date, and location for our future Community Relations Subcommittee meetings. You'll see that a schedule has been developed previously for what appears to be, and I did not, let's see, what is it, the 4th Wednesday of each month at 10:45, meeting here in this space. Does anyone have any objection or concerns to that schedule?
I don't. I'll
Okay.
be here.
I can make sure. I had not put this one down,
Yeah.
but I will make sure.
Okay.
The next one being on May 25th.
Yes.
sorry,
June
June
22nd. Yeah.
What is time?
Yeah. Yes, the next one will be June 22nd at 10:45. Okay. Do we
I'll
need
move to adopt that schedule.
Wonderful, Hannah. Thank you. I will second that. We'll call the roll.
Aaron Engelke.
Yes.
June Elkins Baker.
Yes.
Hannah Royce.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, moving right along. To me, this is the meat, right, of why we're here, is to discuss the purpose and function of the Community Relations Subcommittee. And, I think for those of us who are currently on the committee, we've already had an opportunity to express our personal desire to be on this, to serve in this capacity. But I think now is an appropriate time for us to discuss more specifically about what we hope to accomplish within this dialogue, within these meetings, and would ideally like to open it up for just kind of an open dialogue to begin discussing what that could potentially look like. I'm typically of the mindset that I like to have things spelled out and be pretty clear about what the expectations are. We are a group of volunteers in the community, and we have limited capacities within our availability and schedules. And I also want to be meaningful with the time that we spend in this role. And so, certainly not wanting to indicate a maximum list of purposes and functions, but certainly want to keep it to a place where it's sustainable for us and not too cumbersome. So I'll just go ahead and open it up and see if anybody has any immediate thoughts about what our purpose and function should be.
I was I was listening to what Hannah was saying about some of the issues as far as the community may have, as far as the trust level, as far as what has gone on. And I think maybe first of all, to try to identify what has been some of the things that have come out
Mm-hmm.
to give us an idea of where we need to start with the most pressing first.
Yeah, and I'd like to see what we can do to maybe review what the current, community relations policies look like. Is there anything that the jail trust or that Greg and his staff have that we don't know yet or have access to? So I'd like to definitely see, what is the procedure when this happens? What are we doing to communicate with press? I think oftentimes it's coming out without us having a real, process for that or what have you. And I know that Greg and his team are always in crisis mode because the
Mhm.
jail is constantly in crisis. And so, what are some of these kind of crisis intervention, public relations / media plans that we can come up with? And then two, I'd like to lean into, and that some of that comes up next in item 6 with who we're having sit on the subcommittee. And I think if we do have detainees currently / folks that are currently back in our community, being able to tell us, things that we can do to strengthen trust that don't come from a place of inauthenticity, and things that are, them knowing best as far as where the community is lacking that trust and where this relationship needs to be mended. And I think there's a lot of tragedy and things that we just kind of have the tendency to sweep over and say, well, it's just business as usual. And so I'd like to really dig in and figure out what we do to address those tragedies. That's not only like, hey, this happened, but is there grief counseling? Like, are there things we're doing to really think of that public relationship, not just from a media lens as well, and thinking about the human as a whole, and any way we can uplift their dignity in that.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about community relationships, there's, I view it as like publics, right? Like who are the publics that we, and I say we loosely, right? We're talking about the entity known as the jail, but what community relationships warrant strengthening? What relationships currently exist? And to me, that spans, the from a nonprofit space to the media to even just the general public. And I don't know if it would be beneficial for us to even identify some of those top publics and then work from there. I love these ideas. I've been taking notes about, kind of what are some of the areas that we need to specifically be reviewing. In some capacity, as I sit here, I have my Calm Waters hat on. Calm Waters is Oklahoma City's grief center, and that is one of many relationships that the jail could benefit from, and vice versa. We could absolutely support those individuals who are within those four walls, but also the family members that are affected by having a loved one at the jail. And so that's like one of many community relationships that I believe has been untapped, and I would love to tap into that. And so just thinking through again, what are some specific publics that we would like to dive into to be able to enhance that trust, but also the communication and ability to serve those that are within the jail. So again, breaking it down, is it nonprofits, media, and the general public? I don't know, open to discussion on that.
I'm just trying to I'm trying to collapse into what you just said. The general public, definitely all sectors, all over. an awareness of not what only their loved ones deal with while they're in here, but then what they deal with also. Being able, and I go back to listening, to be able to listen to what is it that they need? What is it they feel like that they are lacking? It's interesting because that covers a span as far as individuals who are in jail. It doesn't matter about who you are or what you look like. What is it that's lacking for you?
Yeah.
And how do we help you to feel that? And then I don't know how far we want to go as far as when they get out. Then is it recidivism that keeps bringing them back? And then is that another issue that we want to look at as far as the community being able to help them to become useful, resourceful? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty broad.
It is broad, right? It's nuanced, and there are a lot of folks in the community doing a lot of work that I think as far as like even pretrial diversion and different efforts that are happening in Oklahoma County, but that are, again, when we think of public relations coming from the jail, usually it is that crisis response. And so if we envisioned and reimagined a world where, maybe the jail is propping up Diversion Hub or saying, we're working on these other things, and in addition to, like Aaron is saying, families and how are we, I think that's how we build community trust, right? Which is going to be hard to do. It's a difficult task. That's why I say it's very nuanced and complex and layered. But I feel that if there's a way that we can empower team and other community organizations and Calm Waters doing a lot of this work in the community and show that the detention center has a true relationship with them. They have a true working effort going to get people out of the jail, to keep people from even being booked in, right? I think that a lot of those things are beneficial when some of the other conversations are usually the more heavy ones. So if we can focus on some positive outcomes, some things, folks, anything good that we can find that we can, piggyback off of the work that's already being done locally, I think that that's helpful too.
So if we have organizations out there that are doing some things, then how do we figure out why the public does not know?
Right.
I mean, and when I talk about being intentional to listen, because to me, that's the first step of building trust, because I know you listened to me because you took the information I gave you and you did something with it. Even if you didn't do what I thought you were going to do, you gave me an explanation as to why not. Because, yeah, it is a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of people know about Team and Calm Waters, of course, but how come, what's keeping people from accessing it?
Right.
So trying to figure that out in order to have the ability for us to use the current things without reinventing the wheel. But what's keeping them from not going in? That would be a question that I would ask. It's a referral, but a referral means nothing if I don't use it.
Right. For sure.
And so, I don't know. I'm just thinking just community relationships, and I'm just thinking, about what that would mean. Whether I'm a mama with a kid that just keeps going back to jail, and there's some shame and guilt that goes with that. So, me trying to going into some of these existing churches, because when you think about, because my kid keeps going, what's your problem? You see what I'm saying? And sometimes they will pull back and won't get involved. So how do we get those people to understand this is not about you or what you did or didn't do? It's about how we can get this stopped.
Yeah. So here's what I'm hearing. I'm just going to throw out three possible purposes and functions. Okay. And then let's just talk it out. One is to identify the barriers that are keeping detainees and families from accessing current community relationships. Two, to identify the greatest areas of support for detainees and community relationships that could be developed to meet those needs. And then three, to review current community relations policies and determine really next steps as far as what needs to be adjusted or modified.
Mm-hmm.
How do those sound? Did anybody capture those? I mean, I have them written in my notes, but we can tweak.
Those sound great.
Would you do them again? I want to make sure I don't write very fast.
Sure, no, you're fine. Did you happen to capture? Do you mind reading? Do you want me to read it again? Okay, here we go. Number 1. Identify the barriers keeping detainees and families from accessing current community relationships or partnerships. Number 2, to identify the greatest areas of support for detainees and community relationships that could be developed to meet those needs. And then number 3, to review the current community relations policies and make adjustments as needed. And maybe making adjustments is not our role, but we can make suggestions for recommended changes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Can I speak or not at this point? Can I speak as a citizen? Madam Chair, can I speak as a citizen?
Yes, you may.
Unless you want me to call in.
Right.
Thank you for the opportunity. I love everything that you guys are talking about. And just a couple of thoughts that you may want to consider, take it or leave it. I think this subcommittee, more than any other, probably will have the most direct input to individuals in our community and be the entity that really fosters civic engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to create that opportunity, because there are a lot of people, a lot of families who are impacted by what happens in our current jail system. There's a lot of people like I've never seen before. There's a heightened awareness and interest in making sure that the direction that the jail goes, both from a policy and procedure standpoint, from an operational standpoint, from a staff environment standpoint, and from a programmatic standpoint, truly reflects the humanity and the values of human life, and make sure that this experience is something that is meaningful and worthwhile for anybody who has to be involved in that. And so just to be intentional about creating that forum for the community to have direct input. So in my mind, this subcommittee, and you gals are the absolute perfect people to fulfill this responsibility, but to be that direct conduit for the community to participate. And then to be able to take any input that you receive back directly, either to the Citizens Advisory Board or perhaps to the Jail Trust, or maybe even to the jail administration directly. I think that this committee would be the front lines of that communication between the community and the entities that are making decisions pertaining to the future of Oklahoma County Jail. And I would just, I don't know how to word this other than just to underscore the value and the importance. I mean, it's the most important, in my estimation, of being intentional about, as we're out in the community or as people who are associated in any level, hear from citizens that have questions or concerns or ideas or thoughts that they're just directed directly to you, and that we give space for that, and we convene, you guys convene and say, okay, let's talk, let's make sure that you are heard. And then I would just also offer that in my estimation, as we've started raising our awareness and taking a different approach to the Oklahoma County Jail, there's a lot of people who have participated in public meetings that have not felt heard. They have not felt validated. And I think that this committee, if I could say what your biggest role is, it's to validate. And that doesn't mean that you have to agree. My daughter wants to stay out until 2 a.m. every morning. I understand that she wants to. I don't agree with that decision, but it's important that she understands that I know why that's important to her. I think you guys are validators, and I think that you are phenomenal validators. And my dream is that this subcommittee would be full of folks from the public who know that they can come here and be heard. That's what I want to say. The second thing I would just add to that, there are some very significant decisions that are coming down the pike pertaining to a potential new jail, a new construction, what that's going to look like, where that's going to be located, how that's going to be paid for. And again, I think that this committee is the perfect conduit to share information. So Hannah, if I could, or Miss Royce, I don't know Madam Chair, I truly believe, and I heard what you said. So as information comes to light, as progress is being made, as changes are being implemented, for this committee to be the place where the community, the public, can come to hear directly the updates in a more intimate, and let's take our time and let's make sure that you understand and that you know what we know, and that flow of information directly to the community. I get very, very excited, and I'm speaking way too long, but I just think that this is next level. This subcommittee is next level as a forum, as the outlet, as the place, as the conduit, as the venue for public to come and know that they're going to be taken seriously, that they're going to be heard, that they're going to get up-to-date, accurate information, and you guys are constantly being the liaison, I guess, between whatever entities you need to be the liaison to, and making sure that the public has the information, especially as it pertains to the potential new construction or construction of a new facility. There's going to be a lot of questions about that, and we want the community to have all of their questions answered. We hope to create buy-in, I think, ultimately, and I think that people are much more likely. I am. When I know what's going on, I'm much more comfortable in being a part of those kind of decisions. And I just think that you are the perfect entity to fulfill that role. I just want it to be known that if you have any questions or if you want to know anything that's happening pertaining to Oklahoma County Jail, you can come to the Community Relationships Subcommittee, and you can get legitimate, up-to-date information. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Mhm.
Chris. Greatly appreciate that perspective, and I completely validate that. Like, it absolutely, I think I don't want to speak for everyone, but certainly I want to be open to the feedback and perspectives of the community, and absolutely be that liaison back to the Community Advisory Board, but also to other members of the community. So I'm suggesting that we add a fourth function and purpose, and that is to be open and validating to the feedback and perspectives of the community, allowing flow of information to be reciprocal. Again, we can rework that, but that was just my first stab at stating, capturing all of what our colleague Chris had to share. Any additional comments on that?
I want to say thank you for those thoughts, because it was in my head, but not that eloquently.
Yeah.
So, as someone who has stood at that podium, county clerk staff can validate that many times and felt like I was potentially unheard, or that community members that I was alongside were unheard. That is my greatest push in being here, right? And giving of my time and giving of my knowledge and my skill set to do whatever we can. Because there is a lot of ambiguity and there is a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. So whatever we can do to create unity in those moments of, despair and unknowingness and all of the things that come with it, I think it is our duty to do so. So I appreciate your thoughts, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the intentional. Intentional.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to be, is intentional.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay. Any other thoughts or additions to the 4 functions of our committee?
I don't think so. I just maybe have a question. Are we allowed to, once we get additional subcommittee members and kind of add to and or, edit those functions, I assume, once we really start functioning, we might be able to know, but I would assume that we have that discrepancy.
I would assume so.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, then
I mean, my guess is that we'll need to vote on these today,
Yeah, I
but
was
then
gonna
we
say,
can
I would move to
modify
adopt
and
otherwise.
vote in future subcommittee meetings.
Well, I'll motion officially to adopt those 4, what are we calling them? Functions of
yeah.
the community relations.
A
second.
Great. We'll call the roll.
Aaron Engelke,
Yes.
June Elkins Baker,
Yes.
Hannah Royce.
Yes.
Wonderful. They pass. That was great. Wonderful discussion. Okay. 6th item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding appointment of additional members to the subcommittee, the qualifications, manner, and timing of those appointments. As we heard earlier in our time together, we have someone seated among us who would like to join the committee. I have 0 objections to that. Would love
Don't
to
either.
have Chris's perspective and contributions on this subcommittee.
I would as well.
The same here.
Do we need to wait until after item 6 to motion Chris in?
Do it all together.
Okay.
Yeah. Then let's open up the discussion about the possibility of other members joining this subcommittee. I know that we've had many a conversation already about the likelihood of involving people who literally are on the front line. And I am personally a tremendous advocate of this. I think, I can only speak for myself on this. I'm removed from the day to day, and I know that I can only be of value to this subcommittee and to this community if I'm hearing from those who are benefiting from the services and in programs that are happening at the jail. And I would value from hearing from detainees as well as individuals that work for the jail as well. And so my recommendation would be that we add one of each of those individuals to this subcommittee. Yes, go ahead.
I don't know if I have some information. Should I say this as a citizen or should I say this from here? Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So I do have some direction from Lynn,
Ooh,
our
good.
attorney,
Thank you.
on the issue or the idea of adding individuals who may be currently detained in the Oklahoma County Jail to any of the subcommittees. I'm just going to read this email out loud publicly. I think it should be a matter of public record to clear up any confusion. It says, I apologize. It's taken me a bit to resolve your inquiry as to whether Oklahoma County detainees at the jail may serve as Citizen Advisory Board subcommittee members. I wanted to be as thorough in making the determination as possible. However, because the viewpoint and input that detainees would provide by participating as full members of the subcommittees would provide value to CAB and the subcommittees, I wanted to make sure and get this right. She says, unfortunately, such appointments would be legal quagmires. There is a viable argument that appointment to CAB, and CAB is Citizen Advisory Board, and therefore a subcommittee thereof makes the member an appointed county officer. Thus, an oath of office is administered to CAB members, indicating that members intend to uphold the laws of the state and aren't being paid to take any particular position. And she cites the reference there. She says, further, a county officer, whether appointed or elected, must be a qualified voter. Persons serving felony sentences cannot vote, at least not while they're under still serving a sentence, likely disqualifying some portion of detainees. Finally, anyone serving as an elected or appointed county officer who is found guilty of a felony during his or her tenure of office is suspended from office. Thus, the appropriate method by which the subcommittees should receive detainee input is to regularly invite detainees to participate by being present in public meetings as individuals or paneled guests to discuss, report, and provide information to members in shaping their recommendations to the Citizens Advisory Board. I regret that this is not the result sought, but believe this is the correct course of action by which Citizen Advisory Board can obtain community input and build consensus with credibility and legally.
All right, well, thank you for that update and clarification. With that in mind, I'm curious to know if we're still allowed, it sounds like we would still be allowed to have a staff member of the jail serve on this subcommittee. What are the subcommittee members' thoughts on moving forward in that direction?
I think we should.
Yeah, and if there's any way to for it to be somebody closer to those public relations moves, or some of Greg's staff that address that with him, maybe that would be helpful. And then on a policy and procedure subcommittee, somebody in a different area of the management in that world would be my only thought. And then figuring out what I would like to figure out what it looks like to either add them as an agenda item, the detainees, or work with Greg's staff to see who, as far as, bringing them. And I know the transportation and all that good stuff, it will be something to work out. But whatever that looks like, I'd love for our June 22nd meeting to have that on the agenda and go ahead and be thinking in that direction.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, so we're going to have staff that may possibly be a part of this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's what we're suggesting. And I absolutely like the idea, Hannah, of having somebody that's specifically within the PR communications function. Mark Opgrand is the PIO and would make sense for him to serve on this subcommittee. I know Mark and think he would be a wonderful addition.
So I have a question. I'm sorry. I apologize if it doesn't make any sense. So when you talk about so I guess I'm thinking when you said staff, I guess I was thinking with somebody working the front line.
Mm-hmm. I think it was suggested that maybe on one of the other subcommittees we could have staff that maybe are more in line with what the subcommittee is focused on. But absolutely, let's discuss that.
Yeah, I'm open to whatever your thoughts are, June. My thought was maybe, if we do have these recommendations, perhaps there's more weight to getting them implemented. Our recommendations for public communications by someone who that's already their
Function.
job
Okay.
potentially, but I'm again
No,
I
okay, I know.
was trying to count up to how many that would give us because I know we're
Right.
trying to keep a majority CAB members in the subcommittees.
Right.
So discussing how many other appointments we could get.
When Reverend Douglas was here, he broke it down, and I can't remember. I think it was 4 you could have,
Yeah.
1 or 2.
I think 2, right? So currently, well, once we officially vote Chris
Okay,
on,
and
then
then
we would have,
and then the other young man,
5.
the other young man that's the PR.
right.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I just asked a question. I was just
Yeah.
curious.
No, that's very helpful.
Yeah. Okay.
But that would still leave us with 2 more appointments, right? Or no?
So I think we should have clarification on this because, and maybe I should look to staff. Pastor Douglas this morning suggested that the rules that we adopted at our last Citizen Advisory Board meeting suggested that a majority of the subcommittees needed to be CAB members, and that we would not have subcommittee meet unless there was a quorum of CAB members present, and that the additional membership could not exceed the quorum constituted of CAB members within each subcommittee. So if this subcommittee, and Leslie is also a member of the subcommittee,
Yes.
I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but if I were also on this subcommittee, that would give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members. 3 would constitute a quorum, and that means that we would have 2 additional appointees to this subcommittee if the subcommittee so chose to do that.
That was my understanding as well.
Is that?
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Okay,
That's
I just
why I
wanna
was
make sure.
tallying, trying to like add us
Yeah.
all up here. Yeah. So potentially somebody, one from the jail, and then one more person from the community.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if I may, I
Go for
feel like I'm doing nothing but talking out of turn. And Hannah, I also want to say thank you for holding up the numbers because I was trying to do it in my head, and your calculator there sure did help. There is a gentleman, and I just mentioned this to the chair, to the committee, who had contacted me and asked if he could serve on this subcommittee. His name is Derwin Romani. Derwin is present. You have seen him before. He has been at a CAB meeting before. I will tell you that Derwin is a African American male who is very active in our community. He does have lived experience. He has spent time in the jail way back when. I mean, he would tell you this story if he were here. He is a recent graduate of the Center for Social Innovation and is very, very interested in helping support understanding, awareness, communication between the direction that the jail is headed and the community itself.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds. What's up?
Okay.
That was my question. Like, technically, we could if we had all CAB members present.
And 3 of those would have to be CAB. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Would you like to set maybe a timeline for that nomination, or do we want to do that today? I know that we've got just timing of appointments on
Right.
this agenda item as well, whatever you all think. I can think of a few folks, and I don't know if we want to, I don't know. If,
Yeah,
if
I don't
submitting
feel like
those
we need to
appointments-
feel rushed.
Yeah.
Right? To necessarily appoint additional members right now. I think we can be very thoughtful and purposeful about who's added as we, continue to progress through these meetings. That's just my opinion. Now, the individuals, tell me the name again.
Derwin.
Derwin. Do
Romani.
you mind spelling his first name so I can visualize it in my head?
DERWIN.
Perfect. Derwin.
Told it right.
Yeah. Certainly entertain, a motion to appoint him, assuming that he is willing
Yeah.
to do so. Do you know if he is, Chris?
He is.
He is. Okay. So,
Willing to second that motion to bring Derwin on.
I think that hits a couple of things that for me is important. I'm one of those nothing without us, nothing about us without us. I mean, I just think that that's real important, and so he kind of hits on some of those things, and so I think that that's real good, and I think that's the reason why I ask about staff as far as from the jail, because it's like, okay, being somebody that's going to bring us some information, but even though it's been a while since he's been in there, he can definitely bring us some insight and help us to understand what was the issue as far as relationships that he saw or he experienced. So I think that that's pretty good. I like that. I think he'll be good.
good.
I agree. I think we might be ready to call roll for this. Essentially, we need to maybe name the motion that it's kind of in one fell swoop. We're motioning to vote Chris Steele and Derwin Romani on the subcommittee for community relations. And then additional appointments could be discussed at the next meeting. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Cool.
Aaron Engelke,
Yes.
June Elkins Baker,
Yes.
Hannah Royce.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. With that, we are to the end of our agenda, and I believe we can adjourn.
Just want to thank staff again for always
Yes,
being
absolutely.
awesome.
You're so
I know
great.
we add a lot of meetings to your plate, so we appreciate you so much. And we'll see you this afternoon.
We
Do we
need
have
to
a
adjourn.
motion and a
I will
second?
motion to adjourn.
A second.
Call the roll.
Aaron Engelke,
Yes.